Welcome to The Infinite Life with Katish Haberfield. I'd like to take you on a transformative journey, exploring the mysteries of the soul. I hope you enjoy the regression case studies, mediumship interviews, and fascinating discussions that I've had with guests on the podcast. I hope that these answer some of the questions that you might have about life on this planet, on others, and in other dimensions. Thank you for joining me, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and most importantly, share with your friends. Namaste. Welcome back to the Infinite Life with Katish Haberfield podcast. I'm Katish Haberfield, your host, and this is season 13, where we are talking to some amazing, interesting, fascinating, insightful individuals. And today we have a repeat guest of the podcast, Lalitha Donatella Rybak. And I'm just going to read you her bio in case you haven't already tuned into the previous episode of the podcast where I did interview her, I think it was last year now. So, Lalitha Donatella Rybak, international best-selling author, transformational mindset coach, entrepreneur, spiritual mentor. She's a researcher of human consciousness who has studied the Vedic culture of the yogis and sages of India for over 30 years. She holds a BA in Vedic arts and science. Lalitha guides her students to their highest human potential and has created Bliss Lab, a coaching business that offers transformational courses for a miraculous life. Her international best-selling books, studies with renowned mentors like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Pillai, and an upcoming feature in Dr. Joe Vitale's movie Zero Limits have established her as a respected authority in the field of spirituality for the new golden age. You can find her at streamlab.com. Welcome back, Lalitha.
It was a mouthful, but thank you. I'm very, very delighted to be back here with Katisha, with you, your audience. Very, very honored.
Now, before we go forward into talking about your brand new book, The Golden Age of Goddess, yes. Love, Abundance, and the Truth Have Returned, I would like to thank you first because as we are recording, it's the 10th of March, and I live in Brisbane, Australia, and we've just been through a direct impact cyclone. And as you can see, there's no water streaming through my house. I have
praise the goddess.
Yeah, I have full power. And when Lalitha was contacting me to make sure this podcast was still going ahead, I said, well, I have done my angelic protection for the block. And I've also had the privilege of having a podcast episode with an expert who knows about trees and rocks. And we moved a lot of stuck energy off the greater property that I was on, including the souls of all sorts of beings that I had thought I'd cleared, but there was another level. And then so I did that, and I did the angels, and then I said to Lalitha, what else should I do? And she said, well, you should pray to Durga and how do you pronounce the next one? Muruga,
yes.
Yeah. And so in the middle of the night, when we got our shelter in place, warning on the phone, and I had to get my 2 teenage boys, and we went into my walk-in robe, and we lay down with all the pillows and the blankets and the food, and we managed to go to sleep. I chanted my way to sleep, chanting those 2 names. And guess what? We're fine. So thank you, Lalitha.
Yes.
And thank you to those God and Goddess.
Always let's thank the divine and the celestial beings who are available now more than ever. We know, everybody knows we're waking up. Everybody has probably heard our frequencies on the earth plane are accelerating at an unprecedented rate, right? So we're all like on the verge of evolving more and more, but also changing dimension. And that takes a lot, right? It takes some shock, it takes some nudging, and it takes also some deliberate choice. So the beings are here, whether we recognize them or not. But I believe that they are so benevolent that it's in our best interest to communicate with them. And we have a lot of literature on that in every tradition, particularly in the Vedic tradition, because the Vedic tradition is very, very close to these beings. They are not theoretical, they're not just archetypes, although they are. But Muruga, for example, we were mentioning him, is from the Pleiades star cluster. And the story is very clear. He came to Tamil Nadu, they say, the rishis, 1,000,000 years ago. Very clear with a precise date. He came from the Pleiades, and the Pleiadian beings were on the earth plane, and they helped us. That's it. And they're very benevolent, and they care about us and the earth. So we shouldn't mess with the earth either. Excuse me.
That's
So,
right.
I've had this same experience as you. I forget how many years ago. I believe it was 2015. We had Sandy, a hurricane in New York City and also New York State. It was called Sandy, famous Sandy. And there was a lot of destruction. And I lived in Westchester County with 7 million homes. I believe only 300,000 retained their electricity. But in my area, my street, I was the only one. Why? We were chanting on the phone in a group call. We were chanting Muruga mantras. These are very powerful sound waves. And because Muruga cares about the earth plane, he specifically mentioned when there's a natural calamity, the risk of a natural calamity. So he takes care of the environment as well as protecting us and giving us victory in some kind of situation where we need to win for good reasons, though. We can't trick Muruga. He knows what we're up to. And so we were chanting mantras, and literally as soon as we said this mantra, I could hear the wind dropping. And then I would stop just to test it. I tested it at least 20 times because I was very hard-nosed back then. Even now I need evidence. And then so I would stop and hear nothing. And then the wind would pick up again. And so I started to chant again, and it would drop and would be calm. We didn't lose a tree or a branch. Maybe there was a little bit of something. The electricity was there, no damage to the house or the garden. The street was devastated. The people lost their electricity. Literally, there were trees down all over town. Power lines were down. It was like an earthquake. But most of my street was okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It doesn't.
Why do you think that? Do you think, and do you understand that it's the continual chanting that is required? I mean, from my perspective, I've learned a lot through you. Before I met you, I didn't think that you could approach this knowledge, this Vedic knowledge and these beings unless you were Hindu or a yogi yourself. But what I've learned through reading your books and having you is that that's not the truth. You don't have to be,
True. These are universal teachings. They're not religious. The rishis and yogis don't have a religion. They have universal teachings. I believe a lot is extraterrestrial, but they themselves have existed on the earth plane in an uninterrupted lineage, the Siddhas of Tamil Nadu, for 50,000 years. And that is validated by various, archaeological sites and histories of different branches of the Vedas. They all say the same thing. And we have pretty much historical evidence at that point. When you find the cities, you find the same stories and myths everywhere. This is a recorded history that was not recorded, that was either suppressed or lost throughout the centuries, and millennia, actually. So yes, these beings are very powerful. And I believe what you said, that actually for just keeping an awareness of them can be enough. But sound waves are very powerful because our brain responds, and we have lots of testing. Harvard University, Harvard Medical School. My guru did teacher. I say guru because in India we call him guru, but he's a teacher. And he has done a lot of research with various brain institutes in this country and also with Harvard Medical School. And our brain responds to those sounds. So we ourselves are protecting ourselves. Right? We are divine too.
Yes.
So we are celestial beings too. We have a physical body by choice or by confusion, sometimes. And okay, I don't know who I am. Let me get this body. And we come back to have an experience. But most of the time we can remember we're just light. So we can protect. Look, a yogi can change the weather. There was a story, but it was true. A yogi had supernormal powers. He was a siddha with siddhis. So the village people called him, village people, but the people from the town, the leaders called him because they were having a long time drought, like 1.5 years without rain, there's no harvest. So they called this yogi and he said, I want to be alone in the town. So I just need to be left alone. So he sent out everybody. They had to leave the village because his consciousness could work only in the right environment. That's why meditation at night, when everybody else is sleeping, is so powerful, because their consciousness is not messing with yours. So with his consciousness, he was able to make it rain, like within, I don't know, a few hours. And I know Aborigines everywhere can do the same, because we do have those supernormal powers. Yeah, our consciousness vibrates too. Our thoughts vibrate. And it's not just thoughts, it's also a state of beings, a state of being. So yeah, the goddesses do the same. And now it's their time, because we have started the Satya Yuga, the time of the goddess, and Satya is truth. So we call it golden age, but it's really, what is golden? Having both the blessings of a good material life and reaching our goals, and also the blessings of a good spiritual practice that actually you see yourself evolving, like getting the things you want without struggling so much, and also understanding higher aspects of yourself. And literally my books have been a great incentive, because I had to write so many times. Maybe I didn't want to meditate for 7 hours a day, right? And also it's an intellectual activity, theoretically. But no, something happened to me that my third eye would get open. I would start seeing the past, sometimes the future, because I was writing about this book, these goddesses. And I didn't want to write this book. I resisted a long time. You probably read in the introduction. I did not want to put that energy again, because I don't go anywhere when I write. I stay home most of the time, and it's really a commitment, right? Yeah, it is also an honor and also joy, but it's a lot of work. My body literally aches at the end of the day from typing and, not channeling. I don't believe so much for myself, okay? I know there are great channelers, but I prefer saying we're using our inborn capacity, abilities to connect with the cosmos. That's what the yogis do. They enter a state where there's no separation between the physical and the subtle. In fact, there is no separation. We create it with our perception, right? You think, okay, this is solid, this is solid, this is solid. Phone is a heavy thing. No, that's not how it is. It's all light, energy.
One of the things that it's interesting, because when I look at you and your social media and like your YouTube and everything like that, I do see beauty and grace and intellect and abundance. But what sparks me is, like when I couldn't physically pick up your book, but I could read it on the ebook, and I did read it, is that I guess because we have come out of the last age and we're now in the golden age, there's this part of us in the Western civilizations, at least I would think, that is so used to the suffering that we say, at some level, I don't believe you that I can have all the things that you say I have, Lalitha. We're still a bit in this, show me the proof, because I don't think you can be beautiful and intellectual and abundance and spiritual all at once. That's how the mind works a bit.
Hard to believe. Even I sometimes, we live in duality, right? So we experience everything in duality. However, it's illusory. And even I sometimes say, okay, I need time to meditate. I need solitude. I'm so used to that. And I have had, for various reasons, I've not been able to be alone for long stretches of time. My students, my clients, my family, which is all a blessing, but there was no time alone. And I was used to a lot of time alone. I needed it at the time. And now I'm realizing, no, we are God. We're supposed to multitask. effortlessly, right? So in and out of the body, basically, we should be able to do that. And in this book, it happened. I did without trying. I didn't know what I was looking for because I did not want to write the book.
How
So
did you get past that? How did you get past the not wanting to?
I resisted it a long time until all these books came across, titles of people with the goddess word. And finally, I said, okay, I've had a lot of mystery school teachings in different traditions of the goddess. I thought I do have an expertise in that. And then I would say, but I don't want to do the work. And then I would think, oh, but I had that vision, for a long time, a long-term vision. It's called Yoga Nidra. And instead of going into a state where there are no thoughts or whatever happens to most people, or you see lights, etc., I literally saw the goddess and she took me through the cosmos. I didn't have words for the experience at the time. I didn't know about the wormholes. For another 5 years, I didn't find out about wormholes. But she took me through these holes, vortexes that had between black and light blue, and sometimes light and fog. And I would be in and out, and she would say, look, this is the Shri chakra. Everybody knows the Shri yantra.
Mm-hmm.
It's the goddess. It's an embodiment of this goddess. I have her statue. Her name is Lalitha Tripura Sundari, of course. Well, and then I have another goddess who's Meenakshi, and I'll show you Vesta, actually, because I didn't expect to find a statue of her. And it's alabaster. It's very pretty. So anyway, these goddesses, I've had so many experiences with goddesses without requesting the experience, because now I would like to try it again, but I didn't do it. It just happened. And so I thought maybe I can talk about that, but then I thought, no, I don't want to do the work. One mantra started playing on my iTunes, not a mantra I listened to yesterday, the day before. No, something I've not heard for years. I forgot I had the mantra. And I thought, this is extremely weird, but I know the goddesses, I know the celestial beings. Once they're nudging you for something that's good for your growth and perhaps some help for the world, everything opens up. Like the doors open. This shortest time it took me to write a book. The first took me 4 years plus. And then the second, maybe 1.5 years. And it was published when? In May 2024. So from May to the holidays, like December, that's all it sounds like May, December, okay, so I sent it to my publisher, Katie, like the first few days of January. And that's it. And then it was published in February. Tell me that.
I was surprised because there was no hint of it when we last talked.
Exactly. Even I didn't know.
Yeah.
And time is accelerating for everybody. So that's the good news. This is not something happening to me. It's happening across the globe to everybody. Everybody is saying every time is accelerating. Like I barely have time to do anything. Experiences are had and digested immediately. Okay. For the first time, I had this experience in meditation. So without effort, everything is happening to us. We're supposed to go to the 5th dimension. I don't know if we'll make it, but definitely the 4th. And the 4th is much subtler than this, than the flesh and blood body. So we would be like the astral body, right? So we would see probably ancestors, departed ancestors, but mostly like higher beings who are still in the 4th, and then they shifted to the 5th and 6th. I believe that's how it works. But if we're lucky, we get a light body.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't mind the idea because you can do whatever you want, including taking another body and then going back and to the high. It's pretty cool.
And one of the things that we talked about, Lalitha, was that people might look at the title of the book, Golden Age of Goddesses, and think, oh, here we go. Here's another women's thing.
Exactly, a feminist, right?
Yeah.
So let me tell you a big disclaimer, this big, not because I think it's a bad thing, but I'm not a feminist in the sense I'm not an activist. I don't believe men are bad per se. No, the other way around. I've always thought men were great. But I do have to admit, and who wouldn't, that women sometimes live in incredible hardship. They're suppressed and they're tortured and more. I don't want to go into the gory details. We know what can happen through some cultural association or through some religion. It can be just a bad partner, can be a bad father. I mean, we have all had an experience when somebody was abusive, right? I've had it too, and it's not pretty. So the feminine has been suppressed. It was not good for men either, because it doesn't empower men to be really masculine. It empowers men to be, when the woman is submissive and she has no freedoms, what happens? The goddess can empower the woman because the self-esteem goes way down.
Mm.
So it's not against men, it's the other way around. As women remember that they are goddesses and they start developing higher self-esteem, remembering that they have divinity and they're pure and they don't need to seduce all the time. They're just become embodied the best of both worlds, right? The physical and the spiritual. And so they can be more loving, more compassionate. And men are empowered that way because then they get to protect femininity and they protect children and the earth plane. An idea, that's to me the highest masculinity. Having that courage and strength and power to protect women, children, and the earth. And animals, why not? You know, every being, because this is a splendid planet. We have to take care of it. And I believe that real masculinity includes those beautiful qualities. So I'm empowered too. And in fact, a lot of my exercises are really designed for men. For example, when you want to embody a goddess, like the protective ones, like Durga or Lalita, who's very powerful. She herself doesn't kill demons, but her army does. You know, there are all these yoginis who go around with all the weapons killing demons. And the color is red. She is represented with a red light sometimes and associated with both the moon, the full moon, and the fifth moon, but also with planet Mars. So there's both, right? Nurturing and protective and fiercely aggressive. So there's all that. So men can embody that Shakti. Shakti is a very big word in the Vedas because it means power, and it's embodied by the divine feminine, not by the divine masculine, but the divine masculine has also Shakti through the consort, right? Because we have the duality. Originally, there was no separation, it was a perfect union, Shiva Shakti, for example. And so the Shakti man is what? More loving, right? Not so rational. Men sometimes have been taught to rationalize other people's pain. Why they can go to war more than women, right? They block off all their feelings, which doesn't necessarily crying in front. You see these videos on YouTube, on TikTok. Sometimes they're, I don't want to comment on them, and, you know, I don't necessarily feel that that's masculinity or femininity, but we all have our own ideas, that's fine. But a really strong man means he's very compassionate. He can feel the feelings of his partner, his companion, right? His wife or girlfriend or whatever. And then they can feel those feelings and go ahead and protect, you know, from harm or from being gaslighted, you know, because when a woman has been abused, even sexually, etc., a lot of people cannot deal with that pain. So they rationalize, oh, okay, whatever. I've heard horrible comments about this, and that's not right. So a real man, they don't mock the woman ever. They actually feel, no, I'm here to protect her. And that's a beautiful thing. Who doesn't like that? Feminists are missing a point because, you know, they're not talking about the real masculinity. They're talking about the oppressors. And sometimes women are oppressors, so we cannot really judge all the time. However, there's a great majority of men who abuse and suppress women for cultural reasons usually, and they're useless. These cultures at that level, I find them unfair to say the least. And we cannot evolve if that persists. To the point I wonder if there isn't a group of individuals who want us all against each other. I know that dark forces want men and women to fight. They want children to be alone, neglected. They want us in trouble. And that's why now the powerful feminine, the Shakti, is more prominent on the planet because it's called the Shakti Yuga. So Golden Age, Satya Yuga, time of truth and Dharma, and also the time of the goddess, because she embodies all that.
And what you were talking to me previously about is that Shakti is a union, but it's more loving, right? So it's when the male is in the divine Shiva Shakti, Shiva Shakti. When the woman is in the divine feminine and the man is in the divine masculine, then that produces a society which is not patriarchal and it's not matriarchal. How would you just
It's enlightened. It's an enlightened, like a golden age. What happens at that time, the women's Shakti is used for, protection. It activates the Shakti of the man, of the divine masculine. So there's a story that Shiva is in earth and Lalita sits on his chest. She has the power. But when she rises, and arouses him, not necessarily in sex, but as an energetic field, he becomes active, and together they dance the dance of creation. And so they both protect and can protect and also create and destroy, because sometimes the creation comes and goes, right? We cannot have the same thing forever, right?
Yeah. So how do you recommend, so for example, I have two sons, and how do you encourage people to show their male family members or to help them, because they need to have role models who are entering this divine masculine? Do you know any tools and techniques, or are they alluded to? I probably glossed over them in the book, to help us both, either whether we're feminine or masculine, to embody those divine qualities so that we can be who we are meant to be, so we get that state that we're all looking for?
That's a beautiful question. I have two boys too. I'm the mother of boys too. So I did my best. I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes. You can ask them. But I always taught them to honor women, right? To the point that sometimes I would take the side of their girlfriends because I felt that those girls were not being treated properly, or at least my kids are pretty good people. But sometimes I felt, no, you made a mistake, so you should apologize to her. And I took the side of the girl. So I believe that helped them understand, hey, it's not just because you're my son, it doesn't mean that you should be doing things you're not supposed to do. And they should honor the feminine. Therefore, they're very protective. Now they're both married, and they are very protective of their wives. And I think that's wonderful, because I didn't necessarily find that very often. And a protective, strong man is really a beautiful thing, right? It makes everybody happy, society safer, and children safer, and their wives safer, even though women have a lot of power, Shakti, right? Shakti, so the power in the Vedas is feminine. It sounds weird, but it's actually in all the ancient traditions, the goddess tradition. Vesta was very powerful. And before her, there was an area of the Roman region that's called the Sabina. And there was a goddess religion there. And the second king of Rome followed that religion to the point that he married this being that was called a goddess. And she ruled over a body of water. And also in the Vedas, we have this belief that all the bodies of water, rivers, creeks, brooks, and even the ocean, except for the new god, the ocean god, Neptune, they're all ruled by goddesses.
Oh,
So
okay.
self is connected with the divine feminine and the nurturing and life itself, hydrogen, right? So that's divine. And my teacher says hydrogen is God. So the goddess represents also the nurturing, the nourishment, and the water, life itself, right? Of course, she also needs the male. And that's beautiful. It's a Shiva Shakti, a perfect union of soulmates that together they have infinite power. And I believe that's very beautiful. Men also can embody a lot of Shakti. And I believe two men, who love each other, they can have a relationship and one will take the role more of the masculine. I believe, right? I don't know much about this, and the other will take more role of the Shakti. I don't know. But so we're not just black and white.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to say this honestly to your audience. I do not believe in force, creating new transgender people by going into schools, especially the primary schools and kindergarten, and advocating this transgenderism. It should be a choice for an adult, and it should not be advertised in the schools. And I believe the Shakti right now, the goddesses they're very upset.
Right.
I felt that energy of Durga and Kali coming back because it's Satya Yuga. And before we can have a golden age, we have to destroy what doesn't work. And I don't mean people who are, no, it's not about killing people or anybody, harming anybody, but standing by the highest moral values. And that's our job, right? Protect the kids. No, you don't. Even just you cannot talk about God to a child according to some school rules, especially if they're public schools. Why should they be reading books about, father having a baby? Give me a break. I think we have gone too far with that. With all due respect, I think I would not want to see a world like that ever, especially with our children who are innocent and suggestible, right? So everybody should do what they want. I respect, every belief, but it shouldn't be harming innocent people. That's what I believe. So thank you for giving me a chance actually to say that, because there's so much in the media. Sometimes it's too much to digest.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's too much for our children too, because my observation, is that boys, and this is not a blanket statement, but a lot of boys are feeling as though it's a sin to be a boy. Do you know what I mean? Because
why? So
yeah,
beautiful. I was so happy to have two boys, to the point I believe I was intuitive when I was a child. My favorite doll and my universally most loved doll was a baby boy, a newborn, dressed in baby blue wool, light blue wool, with a little blue pacifier, like sky blue or lighter even. And I adored that doll. Okay, so it was a coincidence, right, that I had two boys. So I kind of feel I was training myself. It's such a beautiful thing. And also a little girl. I mean, it's wonderful, right? And when she's an adult, she can decide whatever she wants to do with her life, and including her, like relationships, etc. And I think there should be more respect, that's all. For
yeah.
parents, children, and delicate, suggestible people who need to make up their minds, and be more respect for children. And
Yeah.
that's what the fierce goddesses are bringing, that energy of protection. They have had it with all this. Not this particularly, with wars, injustice, slaughtering of Christians everywhere right now, and other ethnicities, but I don't want to go into that. But we know, the world right now is in turmoil. But that's also part of the cleansing, unfortunately. So as we're experiencing the beginning of Satya Yuga, we're also experiencing the end of a very dark time, Kali Yuga.
It's really interesting. What I find interesting, Lalitha, is that when I was reading your book, and we can go into this into a second, is that you had these very, very emotional visitations to your past life in ancient Rome where you were a Vestal Virgin. And I have had many, many past lives in Rome, and I have always been the male figure so far that I've found. Always been the warrior, the soldier, the fighter, the authoritarian, the leader, the direct opposite to what your past lives are. Yet we are both in this lifetime, both as women,
We
both
met.
yeah.
We got another connection, right? You're so spiritual, so am I. So like, I feel we have a lot in common.
Yeah, but it's just funny that, sometimes I feel like I'm embodied as a female this time to heal the divine masculine within me. And that's why most of my past life visitations have been to masculine lifetimes where I've actually been very emotionally wounded as well as physically wounded, but it's been the emotions that have come out. And
Oh,
I do
yeah.
believe that that was in order for me to be prepared to be sensitive and caring towards my two boys by having two boys and understand their point of view. But also, being a female so that I could respect that females have experienced persecution. And do you want to explain your insights into your Vestal lifetime? I mean, that was quite incredible.
Sure. Something that I experienced the first time in 2003. I know because I was in a certification course. I was in this beautiful place. It was like a Gurukulam. Gurukulam means a spiritual Vedic school. It was not per se Vedic, but the culture was profoundly yogic. And also there were various disciplines like Reiki and also like studying, about Ganesha, archetypes and chanting also. It was very beautiful and a lot of asanas. So it was really full immersion. And also we had a course in yoga therapy. So we had also like the best of both worlds. We had the Cleveland Clinic orthopedic doctors who come to teach us about anatomy. So it was an amazing immersion. And one day I was very blissful. I was very happy after a lot of yoga hours. And I was so peaceful. I was in Balasana, that pose everybody loves when you're exhausted, forehead on the floor. You sit on your heels and you're in bliss. There you go. Your arms are open. And all of a sudden, as I'm in bliss, I see myself in Rome, ancient Rome. Didn't look like anything. I lived in Rome about 10 years before I moved to the US. And I had a repulsion to the Vesta Temple, but I didn't question it. I didn't ask why. I just know that all of a sudden I was in the US, like what, 2004, I moved in 1986. So I moved in 1986 to the US and never thought of Rome or the Roman Forum. And here I am in yoga class with the forehead glued to the mat, and I see myself in Rome. I knew that girl was me without a shadow of a doubt. And I was so scared. I was shaking from fear. And I saw what I looked like, and everything was very beautiful around. So there was no reason to have fear. The marbles, shiny white marbles, incredibly beautiful, and everything was pristine. And I thought, this is the Roman Forum, but it doesn't look like that. I remember what it looks like now. Gray, travertine instead of marble, dust everywhere, a wreck. There's not much. And yet I could see the Vesta Temple, I could see everything around me. And I just know I was very scared. And when I came out of it, I cried. And then I thought, oh my God, I was a Vestal virgin. And I knew I'd done some boo-boo. According to the Moors, to the traditional Vestals, I was not supposed to meet with a boy. And even though nothing much happened between us, that was called incestum. Okay, that's where the word incest comes from, a very serious crime towards God or the goddess. So I had broken the vow. And even though not literally, I did not lose my virginity, I was supposed to die. And so I knew that, that's all. And I never thought about it again until this book came along. Okay. And then as I'm thinking should I write it, not write it? And I had a lot of synchronicities, including a mantra playing on its own on iTunes, a goddess mantra that I've forgotten. So all of a sudden I'm writing and I remember Vesta, and I thought, well, maybe that's a good idea to talk about that time. So it's also healing. And then I'm writing about it, a lot more information came. And I could literally remote view the past without trying. To the point once I was outside of my body and I could see above the temple. You don't get to see that unless you're in the life, in the astral world. So maybe that was a vision of consciousness. I don't know what it was. I cannot explain it. Or maybe it was after I passed away that I could see it so clearly from above. I don't want to disclose too much because I would like people to read the book. There's a lot of historical evidence for what I saw, including my clothes. And I kept dismissing them because rationally they didn't make any sense. But everything was validated, from the clothes to the building, to the moldings on the wall, like the structure of the temple, which I didn't know. I could see it very clearly. And also what was around in the Roman Forum, because it was a time in which the Vestal religion had been given more importance because one emperor, the first emperor, Augustus, decided to follow the religion of the goddess with his wife. So they put a lot of money in it and they made it very luxurious. So I could see all that without even knowing why, and everything was validated, including the age of the Praetorian guards and their clothes, etc. Oh my goodness, I didn't even try, but all this knowledge came to me. So we have a lot of abilities, and sometimes it's hard to realize how much. But I believe by staying open and by choosing to be not only open, but accepting our intuition, which is, I think, a beautiful question you asked me the last time we were together. And I think your viewers like to hear that maybe. How do you increase your intuition? Just accept it, love it, expect the miracles. Because with intuition, you also can create anything. Why? You will know where to go at the right time and choose between two people or two situations or three businesses. You'll just be guided. You'll be guided all the time. So I also had a lot of intuitions coming to me through the idea. To me, it was just an idea. I didn't know anything about her, Mary Magdalene. All of a sudden, I believe she came. Also, when I was writing the book, so it's a little teaser. In the middle of the night, I was really in agony during the day. Is this real? I don't want to write BS. I really don't want to tell stories. So I kept questioning myself, but then historical evidence came through research. But then also in the middle of the night, before I went to sleep, I prayed to the goddess and I said, show me the truth. Tell me the truth. Is this from memory or my imagination? I didn't want to dupe my readers. I have integrity in these kind of things. I try to have it all the time, but particularly in my spiritual practice. So in the middle of the night, I woke up as I'm drinking some water. I hear from the middle of the bedroom, memory. Oh my God. It was a beautiful feminine voice, but it had a lot of authority, like sovereignty. It gives me the chills because there's so much power in the goddess, and we have it too. I think it's a good quality because so we're not swayed by, wrong ideas or wrong behavior, wrong people. We really need to step into our power and our sovereignty. And I think that's what's needed for men and women right now. Women step into their sovereignty, they will not be abused. And men who are stepping into their sovereignty, they don't need to abuse women or children or the earth. So I think sovereignty is a major, major issue for us right now. We need to embody it. And the goddess gives you that authority. So also I had a little static, and then reading books by Elena Danaan, who is in touch with all these extraterrestrials from a federation that's supposed to exist of all these different races, also intergalactic, very higher beings who have returned. They are celestial beings. So she said that once she was talking to this being from the ninth dimension, and when she came to talk to her, there was some static metallic sound. I was like, that's exactly what happened to me. I was like, oh my God, it was true. I was very happy, of course. It was a validation, you know. And also, who was talking? I was alone in the room. I turned on the lights. I was literally alone in the bed, sitting on the bed, drinking water. So I knew that this was either another dimension. I don't believe it came from me, because sometimes we hear our intuition as a voice within, but this was this was outside of me. It was loud and clear. So that's
Yeah.
first. Too many things happened for this book that it had to be written. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of love I I really recommend it, because we need this kind of teachings right now. They were right in the West. In India, no, even men can take the name of a goddess. There are a lot of men who are called Lakshmi in India, and it's not embarrassing. It's normal. You know, they have two or three names like Lakshmi Kumar or whatever, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, they
interesting.
follow. Yes, yes. It's not very common, but it's accepted. And also we know stories of like awakenings through changing name. So I believe that changing a name, adopting a very sacred name, we have a lot of power. We can embody that being, because the frequencies, you know, you pronounce it every day and you write it too, and you acquire those qualities.
Yeah.
Name of a goddess. When I was in yoga school, I gave myself the name Sarasvati because I liked the goddess of wisdom and the fine arts. And it just resonated with me, the whole tradition. But then my teacher gave me the name Lalitha, and I totally loved it and always use it now, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I know in the Buddhist tradition too that people have different spiritual name once they take their vows. I don't know what it is. I haven't done it in this lifetime, done it previously, but
They
yeah.
initiate it with a new name because it starts a new destiny.
Mm.
It changes your life.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I'd just like also to confirm with what Lalitha was saying that, previously I had believed, and I've totally changed this belief now, that you could not access, feel, or resonate with a past life unless you were, like in a supervised
Ed,
hyp
Edgar Cayce.
yeah.
It happened to me, so it can happen to anybody. You
Yeah,
know,
and it's
I,
happened for me as well. So I just wanted to confirm that, the more you explore who you are and who you have been, and you are open to teachings and wisdom, and you work with the different goddesses, with the angels, with the different celestial beings, the more you become certain that that voice is definitely outside of me, and you can hear and connect. But you can also, in my experience, for example, last night I had my own revelation where I was finally given confirmation about a dual incarnation that I had researched and been drawn to 5 years ago. And, I
yes,
had,
yes. So there is a reason why you had that. Yes.
yeah, because I had worked out the time period, the person, and then I went, it's either him or it's her. But I think it's her. And I went into into a spiritual teaching session, and they went, you were him. And it was in front of the whole bunch of people, and they all went, yes. And I was in that lifetime too. And then I said, but I think it was a dual incarnation. I think I was her as well as him. And
Possible. Yeah, it's possible. My teacher said right now Elon Musk is embodying two souls. One is Tesla, and the other is, what was the other one? The other scientist of his time, Edison. Was it Edison?
all right,
Yeah.
yes, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so last night I had that confirmation that I was correct. And because I actually crossed over her. because she had not gone to the light yet. And the reason why she had not gone to the light yet was because she was learning about the balance between masculine and femininity, and she had been observing my reaction to him and being understood as being him, because I had a very strong emotional reaction, and all the wisdom in the learning about his incarnation and what he was learning with love, because she had actually married him. But the marriage did not get consummated. It was immediately they recognized each other's souls. And this part is not documented in history, but they recognized each other. And they had a private little conference and they went, this can't go ahead. We can't consummate this. We're going to make up a reason why we're not attracted to each other, because we know that we're here to discover friendship. And so they had this historical reason for why they didn't get
What time period?
consummated.
Can I ask? What time period was it?
This was in the 1400s.
So that's the Renaissance in Italy, also Europe, because all the artists came to Italy, went to
Yeah.
Italy.
Yeah. But the interesting thing was that they were very, very good friends. And I had this knowing, and I can even match my face with her historical picture, and we look the same. But I can also match my face with his face, and we look the same. So it's interesting. I just wanted to confirm that sometimes you can feel like you can do all this research into a time period, and you can say, well, I think I was this person, but am I influencing myself because I'm adding all this knowledge? And
I did the research, names of Vestal virgins who were executed, and I found a list. And because of the time period of Augustus, it was like towards the end of, it was like maybe 50 BC or something, or maybe 30 BC, I don't remember. So I read the names and one resonated, but I didn't want to, trick myself into believing something. So I let it go. Because there's literally a list on the internet of those who have been executed and those who, I don't want to say what happened to me, but it's not literally a happy ending, but it's not terrible. It's not a horror book. Yeah, it's a very positive. Beautiful stories, actually, of all experiences I've had with different goddesses. With at least 2 goddesses, I've had travels throughout the cosmos. I didn't know that was possible for me. I never tried to do that. The Holy Spirit is a woman. According to an ancient tradition, she's Ruach. And in my experience, she was a collective, different goddesses. So these are female beings. So the Holy Spirit, as we believe, is not a man, is actually a goddess. And I don't know, our religion, I grew up as Christian, Catholic, but we were never told much about the Holy Spirit. And I felt there was a gap. That's why I never cared for the Holy Spirit. Also, I didn't care so much for Jesus anymore, even though I loved him so much as a child. But he came to me in meditation, started 6 years ago. I jumped off my chair because he came 3 times, and each time I forgot. And then again, and then, oh my God, and then again. So every time I forgot, because I was in deep meditation with my teacher and a big group of people. And group meditation is very, very powerful. So yes, our personal practice is paramount, but being in group and praying in groups and meditating in groups is amazingly powerful. And we can change the weather and more. We can make a lot of miracles for each other, praying together. This is the time to pray because of the changes on the earth plane, etc.
And I would just like to encourage people, when you do read Lalitha's book, it is like an activation, in my experience, because you do pick up the vibration of the book.
My heart, because I never, it was very profound for me, but even writing it, but I never know, what comes up across after. And I believe right now we need to focus on protection, right? Not necessarily violence, protection of all the people who are not protected. And the goddesses now, so there is a tradition in the Vedas, it says at the end of the Yuga, which is Kali Yuga, the last one, then Satya Yuga returns and Kali comes across. Kali is the most destructive of all. She literally kills demons and she puts the skulls around her neck. That's not my favorite goddess to look at. She has blood on her face. She has the tongue sticking out. She's like enraged. She's totally on a rampage, destroying everything to the point that her husband pretended to be dead. Shiva pretended to be dead to awaken her love again, so she would stop destroying the universe. And finally she stopped because she became very worried about him, and so she kneeled and she was over him and thought she had lost him, but then she realized he was alive, and then her love returned and she stopped killing everything. She thought the world has gone too far, it's better to destroy it. So yeah, so now we have Kali, not because the goddess is dangerous, it's the other way around. She's restoring righteousness. So the demons need to be destroyed, basically, before we can experience Satya Yuga.
And the interesting thing about that is that love is the most powerful force. And so my wish for Kali would be to explore how she can transform demons, because I know in my own spirit releasement sessions, I have taught clients how to use love to not destroy, but transform a demon. So
we cannot transform evil because we don't have the right. I mean, evil at some point will evolve. An evil being has its own karma. So we don't know which is which, right? But some demons need to die. Literally, there's in the Ramayana and Mahabharata, all these epics, including the Bhagavad Gita. So we need to understand our compassion as, it needs to be channeled properly. And even the Dalai Lama calls it stupid compassion sometimes. So there's this divine king is an incarnation of the protective being, protects the earth plane, called Vishnu. And his name is Rama, and he's a king. But he is aware of his divinity in some traditions. So he gives the demons another chance every time. So he warns them, you have done this and this and this. I'm supposed to kill you, but do you repent? And when there's no repentance and there's defiance and actually the demon attacks him, then he goes and kills him. Because he's invincible, he has all these weapons, not only nuclear weapons, and even more powerful than nuclear that we cannot even imagine. And all this technology existed 35,000 years ago. So yeah, some demons just want to be destroyed. And as they're dying, some of them repented in the death process, and they became light, and they entered the heart of the god of Vishnu. And that was beautiful to see, like the most deep demonic being who destroyed his own family, his own lineage, his own dynasty. He was so evil, he would not repent, he had the biggest ego. At the moment when Rama killed him, he went into a poof, like light, and entered his heart. That was beautiful to see.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Yeah. And is there any last, so we're at the top of the hour now, so I want to value your time. Is there any last thought that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, so we need to awaken our supernormal powers, meaning just focus on your third eye. Just even the idea is helpful. Accept your intuition. There's no mistake. We make mistakes anyway. I've never had, to this day, I cannot say when it was an intuition and it came with those characteristics, like an energy that was very gentle, very positive. I've never made a mistake. It literally comes as a divine blessing. So it is really a divine gift, right? So yeah. Even Einstein, it was a very good thing that things came to him rather than studying and analyzing, because he realized that an analysis was not as powerful. The intellect is finite, and also similarly, it's like ChatGPT. It's a fantastic tool, but information is put in, so it's finite, right? And we have more abilities than that, higher abilities. And there's not, so my teacher who's doing a lot of research in this field said that it will take us like 10,000 years to make computers like human beings, to have that consciousness. It's not possible right now.
Very interesting. Well, I highly encourage everybody to head over to Amazon and get a copy of Lalitha's book and to go over to
Can I say the title one more time?
yeah, have you got the book there? Or no, you haven't got the
Yeah, I have it. I'm sorry that I'm not
that's all right.
self-promoting tonight. I don't have it. It's called Golden Age Goddesses. So at least I believe it's love, abundance, and happiness, I guess, have returned. Can you believe I don't even remember? Once I put down a book, it's like it never even happened. Like I didn't know what to do with myself for the first few days, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, it's done." I don't even remember what I wrote, and sometimes I open it randomly. Did I write this? It was almost like it came from a different dimension. It's very strange.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations once again, and maybe this time next
Number
year.
one bestseller. Number one bestseller in Australia, so you're good, and also USA.
Yeah. Yes, so
Awesome.
maybe next time we talk, there'll be another book that you've got no idea that you were going to
No,
write.
I'm not planning. I need to focus on other things right now. Yeah,
All
very
right.
excited.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time today.
As usual, seeing you. Wonderful. See you soon, Kadisha.
Thank you.